Welcome to the sequel to the very first episode of the Mondays, where, funny enough, I also had long hair, which is weird because when I'm editing this, I have short hair because I got a haircut. How did you guys get here? It's weird. Time travel can be weird, right? Back then I talked about reboots, remakes, and revivals, and how I wasn't going to cover sequels in that video because sequels are kind of different. They can be none of those and also all of those at once. But let's go over what a sequel is. According to Merriam-Webster, a sequel is a subsequent development or next installment, especially literary, cinematic, or televised work continuing the course of a story it begun in a preceding one. Essentially, for movies and TV, it's the next step of the story, also for books as well. And for a sequel for like a movie or something, it would be examples would be something in a numbered series like the Raimi trilogy or the Men in Black trilogy, if you don't count International. And also, along with those, if a film acknowledges a film or a previous film, like the Harry Potter movies, Lord of the Rings movies, Alien, MCU, you get the picture. But what makes a good sequel, you might be asking? The sequel should acknowledge the last film or films. What was established in the previous film should still be relevant to the events of the story being played out, but the film should be able to stand on its own without relying too much on the previous film.
There's a little gray area in there, and that's where you operate.
Yeah, it should mention the last film once or twice, here and there, but not be so reliant that an audience member who didn't see the previous one is saying, wait, why is that character important? Why is that item getting them excited? Etc. On the other hand, it should not only expand the story, but build on the characters and the world. John Wick Chapter 2 is a great example of expanding the story and world. John needs less expanding because most of that was done in John Wick. He's an ex-hitman who's really fucking good at his job. But the directors knew they needed a new way to pull him back into the crime world that wasn't someone killed his dog. And they decided to build on the world with things laid out by the first film. We learn how John got out with a blood oath, and the size of the crime world expanded outside of New York to Rome, and new characters and stakes laid out, and rules in the world set in the first film are set up for more world building in Parabellum. If you have a sequel to a story, not only do you want to add a few new characters to the film, but you'd also want to build on the original characters, make them develop, but not push them to the point where they're basically a completely different character. Take the Star Wars sequel trilogy. We got new characters, but the old ones are just the exact same, but with gray hair, or so different that you have the actor saying it's now Jake Skywalker. Also, if you want to kill off characters from a past film, do it in your sequel, Independence Day Resurgence, with Will Smith's character. What the hell? One problem that makes sequels fall flat is how obvious the cash grab is for the studio. When an audience can tell how little the studio cared about the story and cared more about seeing how many seats they can sell, if you mention a successful film getting a sequel, can really hurt an audience. If a studio actually takes the time to plan out the sequel, figure out the right people who can execute that plan, and show just how much they care about it, the audience will also care. I'm looking at you straight to DVD sequels for Disney movies. But now you might be asking, what is examples of great sequels as well as bad sequels? And what falls under sequel if a sequel can be all reboot, remake, revival, or none at all? I'm going to give some examples, but I'm going to try and leave books series out because, they already have source material, and you could say that for comics, especially with a couple of them they're about to come up with. But, book to movie franchises tend to follow the book more, whereas like the comic book movies try and take a storyline from the comics and kind of adapt it to what they're doing. But regardless, let's get into it. The whole franchise tells a singular story broken up by singular stories following specific characters. A lot of hits and misses, but each one led to the biggest team-up movies in history to this point. This one fell flat Probably the only good movie in this trilogy is The Force Awakens, and that was just A New Hope, but with modern effects. Didn't really expand on the world building with 3 planet ecosystem types, and felt like this was more 2 small factions fighting than an empire level threat to the galaxy as a whole, like they were trying to make the First Order feel like. New characters and expands on the rules with how the board game adapted to the changing times and became a video game. It was really interesting to see that. I don't really have to say much about it. It's regarded as one of, if not the best sequel ever released. One of the best superhero movies that was produced, adding a new character and seeing how Peter tackles losing his powers. Did Spider-Man make him a hero, or is he a hero regardless of the superpowers? We touched on it before, but I'm going to bring it up again. It tackles more world building by fleshing out the world outside of New York and the Russian mobsters he killed in the first film. Even this series, The Mondays, has sequels in it with the Christmas specials. A Very Merry Christmas Time 2, Electric Boogaloo, is a direct sequel to A Very Merry Christmas Time from 2022. With a third being planned as we speak. So, anyways, I hope that cleared that up. Yeah. What? Oh, the timelines. I have to stop him. At any cost. Pause. The Tuesdays? Really? That's just lazy writing. Like, that is creatively bankrupt. You just went to the second day of the week. Also, can we go back? Why is Auda in a medieval Renaissance fair shirt? I like the look, but also, we're really introducing Auda in the sequel? I feel like he should have been in the first one. Like, he's barely been in the Mondays. He was in the Pride special, but I think that's the only one. Correct me if I'm wrong. Also, can we go back to the first shot of me? That's just a JJK reference. That... We're referencing other, like, anime now? Yeah, it's cool, but... Don't... Come on. Who wrote this? Who's writing the sequel to the Mondays? No, you're fired. No, you're fired. Let me get back here.